Surjit Balla, now the BJP seems opposed to the idea of redistribution, but if I go to page 125 of the BJP's election manifesto in the section on economy in 1999, it talks about redistribution towards poverty eradication. If I go to page 259 of the BJP manifesto in 1996 on our economic thought, market may ensure growth, but it cannot ensure redistribution of justice and equity. The state continues to have a role to play. So what the party in power seems to think is a bad idea, the same party in opposition didn't seem to think it was such a bad idea. So is it just your economic lens? Is it determined by where you sit, whether you're in the treasury benches or in opposition? Surjit Balla?
No, I don't think it depends on where you sit, but what any discussion should have is a reality check with the data.
Correct.
Now, I see that first, let me state a very simple, straightforward observation based on hard data is that since 2014, we have had more redistribution than at ever any time before. So, taxing wealth or whatever, the purpose is to grow the economy and to make sure that the bottom 20, 30, 40, 50, choose your percentage, grows at a faster pace than the others. And if you count the redistributive policies that have taken place, just add them up, it has been a phenomenal time for India, such that if you look at the latest data, 2022-23 Consumer Expenditure Survey, and you compare it with the 2011-12, for the first time in Indian history, inequality, consumption inequality has declined. There are not too many instances in the world where consumption inequality on an aggregate basis,
but Thomas Piketty says that income
declined.
inequality is higher than it was during the British Raj. Okay. That 1% of the population is 40% of the income.
I'm coming to that. I said that what goes by the window is data. Now, 1% inequality is according to certain economists who claim to have produced this data from where? Let's ask, where is this data coming from? And, I have written on it. I don't want to bore the audience with that. But the question is what we should all do. Whatever data government comes up with, whatever data I come up with, whatever data you come up with, we should question. You are taking it as a self-given fact that what these guys are saying is correct. There hasn't been an income distribution survey in India. I have argued for it when I was a member of the Statistical Commission back in 2006. We should start having an income distribution survey. We don't have one. So what Piketty and all do is manufacture data which sells to a certain audience. But that doesn't mean what they're saying is correct. What we do know, the reality check is, what we do know is that redistribution today in India is higher and better than it's ever been before.
Let Arun...
Remember, last point.
Yes.
Remember that Rajiv Gandhi, back in 1985, said that only 15%...
I think you pressed the mute button, Surjit. Surjit Balla, you pressed the mute button. Yeah.
Sorry?
Go on.
Yeah. I remember on your program, you were the anchor where you showed how money was going or food was going from the godowns to liquor stores. Okay? You remember that?
Sure.
That was, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, or whatever. A very, very good show. I still remember it very clearly. Now, what has happened? The targeting, the redistribution, the efficiency of government redistributing food to the poor is really gone up, and everybody, international agencies, you mention anybody, it's now about 90%.
Okay, you make an important point. Let Arun Kumar respond to this, because your argument is that the efficiency with which we are distributing whether it is food or money to the poorest, has gone up. Pilferage, corruption is down. That Thomas Piketty and the others don't have any reason to say that India is becoming more
Don't have any data to
equal
say.
because we haven't done an income distribution survey. So they're basically these are just conjectures, because their report says that India is behind only countries like Peru and Yemen. So it's not as if they're thinking India is doing well. Surjit Bala, Professor Kumar, arguing to say India is actually doing better when it comes to redistribution, because we're spending more, corruption is down, pilferage is down, and the poor are benefiting directly.
Well, the first point I want to make is that nobody's suggesting that you loot and plunder from the rich and distribute to the poor. What is being suggested is to set up systems so that the inequality becomes less. How do you do that? Wealth inequality depends on income inequality. So there are three kinds of inequalities. There's consumption inequality, income inequality, and wealth inequality. Consumption inequality is the least, income inequality is the next, and wealth inequality is the highest. So when you reduce income inequality by giving employment, by giving proper wages, it's not that the poor people are not working hard. It's not just the rich who work hard. It's also the poor who work very hard in the fields, in the workplace, and so on. So therefore, the question is, what is fair? Should for 12 hours of work in the field or for 12 hours of work in the factory, should they get the low wages that they get? So therefore, the question of equity will always come up. What in a society, because after all, it's a system. As
but you can't artificially inflate wages beyond a point for work being done in the farm at a certain level. Yes,
I'm saying today, given the unemployment, given the large size of the unorganized sector, wages will tend to be low. If you created more employment in the system, then people will get higher wages.
Yeah, but if you artificially inflate wages, companies will go to Vietnam, they'll go to Indonesia.
I said generate more employment. Today, large number of people are underemployed, they are disguised unemployed, they are outside the labor force.
No, but that's such a generic thing to say. Who can argue with generate more employment? I mean, everybody will say, yes, of course.
It's your policies. It's your policies that determine that. So, for instance, if in the budget...
Sir, but Professor Arun Kumar, with respect to... Just 1 second, sir.
Let me complete. You allow everybody else to complete, but you don't allow me to complete.
Go on, sir.
Whenever I make a point, you interject in between, because you probably don't like my views.
Okay, go on, sir.
That's okay. But the point I'm making is that if you can generate more employment by having policies which will lead to more labor-intensive areas of investment, then you'll have a lot more employment generation in the economy. Like, for instance, in education, in health. We are lacking in education and health, and that's what leaves our labor force very unproductive. And that's why they're not able to generate employment for themselves. So we need to spend a lot more on education, a lot more on health. And as was being said by Mr. Sharma, we need a lot more investment in agriculture. Agriculture still employs 46% of the workforce, and there, as you know, the incomes are very small. The e-Shram portal data tells you that the 30 crore people are registered there. 90% are earning less than 10,000 rupees per month. And this 10,000 rupees per month corresponds to close to the poverty line. The poverty line of the World Bank is $2.15 per person per day. So for a family of 5, you require 26,500 rupees. So therefore, those people who are in the unorganized sector, they work very hard, but they get very low wages because of the huge unemployment that is there in the economy.
Okay.
In other words, if you generate more employment, then the picture will begin to turn around.
Yes, you want to generate more employment, but if you keep talking about inheritance tax, you talk about wealth redistribution, the companies that can possibly generate more employment by investing in the India story, they will bounce. They will flee from Indian shores. They'll invest elsewhere. Rajiv Mantri wants...
That's not the point I made. That's not the point I made. I said that income inequality leads to wealth inequality, and income inequality can be lowered by, giving more employment at the lower levels, creating more...
Who will give the employment?
Agriculture.
Sir, who will give the employment?
Sir, if you've spoken enough, sir, you've spoken now. Let Rajiv Mantri
who will give the employment?
Let Rajiv Mantri counter you.
He doesn't listen. He only answers to the straw man that he creates. He said smash and hit. Nobody said that you smash and hit.
I am using the language that was used by the people who are suggesting these policies. They have used the word grab.
And also
the word they have used.
The flow and the stock. I never said flow and stock mix up. I said income inequality leads to the wealth inequality.